While global attention remains fixed on major powers and high-profile conflicts, a quieter, but potentially explosive, crisis is unfolding in Central Asia. In the Ferghana Valley, one of the most densely populated and geopolitically sensitive regions in the region, tensions are rising once again. As of mid-April, border areas between Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan have witnessed some of the most significant shelling in years. What appears at first glance to be a localized dispute is something far more dangerous. Because in this region, conflicts are rarely isolated. They are layered, shaped by history, identity, geography, and resources. And when those layers ignite, the consequences can extend far beyond national borders. The Ferghana Valley sits at the heart of Central Asia, a fertile basin surrounded by mountains and divided among three nations: Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. It is home to millions of people, making it one of the most densely populated areas in the region. But the borders that divide it are not natural. They were drawn during the Soviet era, often without regard for ethnic, cultural, or geographic realities. As a result, the valley is a patchwork of enclaves, disputed territories, and overlapping claims. This makes it one of the most volatile regions in Eurasia. In mid-April, tensions escalated sharply in the Batken and Osh regions of Kyrgyzstan. Reports indicated exchanges of fire across disputed border areas, with both sides accusing each other of provocation. Heavy weapons, including mortars, were reportedly used in some engagements. This level of escalation is significant, because previous clashes in the region were often brief and contained, but this time, the intensity suggests something deeper: a breakdown in fragile local agreements. The roots of these tensions stretch back decades. During the Soviet era, administrative borders were drawn to balance political control, not stability. Communities that once lived together found themselves divided by national boundaries. Ethnic Kyrgyz, Uzbeks, and Tajiks often live side by side, but under different governments. This creates friction over land, identity, and political authority. Beyond borders and ethnicity, one resource drives many of these conflicts: water. The Ferghana Valley depends heavily on irrigation. Rivers, canals, and reservoirs are shared across borders, but controlled unevenly. Upstream countries control flow. Downstream communities depend on access. When water is restricted, tensions rise. In many cases, disputes over irrigation channels have triggered larger clashes. These conflicts may appear small, but they carry disproportionate risk because they occur in densely populated regions, disputed territories, weakly demarcated borders, and most importantly, in a region influenced by larger powers. The recent shelling marks a shift from isolated clashes to structured military engagement of miscalculation. And in geopolitics, miscalculation is often the trigger for larger conflict. For civilians, the consequences are immediate: displacement, fear, loss of livelihood. These are not abstract geopolitical tensions. They are human realities. Russia maintains security influence in Central Asia. Through alliances and military agreements, it positions itself as a stabilizing force. But intervention carries risks. China's interests are economic, but deeply strategic. Instability threatens infrastructure, trade, and regional connectivity. If conflict escalates, external intervention becomes more likely. Not necessarily global, but regional. Central Asia sits at a strategic crossroads. Instability here affects trade corridors, energy routes, regional security. What makes the Ferghana Valley especially volatile is not just the conflict itself, but its pattern. Tensions here rarely follow a straight line. They rise suddenly, de-escalate under pressure, and then return months or years later, often more intense than before. This cycle creates a constant state of instability, one that prevents long-term solutions from taking hold. Local ceasefires may stop the shooting temporarily, but they rarely resolve the underlying issues. Border demarcation remains incomplete. Water sharing agreements remain fragile. Trust between communities continues to erode. At the same time, demographic pressures are increasing. Population growth in the valley is placing additional strain on land and resources, intensifying competition over already limited access to water and farmland. This means future conflicts may not only be more frequent, but harder to contain. For regional governments, the challenge is clear. Stability cannot rely on reaction alone. It requires structural solutions, coordinated policies, shared infrastructure, and long-term cooperation. Without these, the Ferghana Valley will remain not just a flashpoint, but a forecast of future conflict dynamics in resource-constrained regions around the world. The Ferghana Valley is more than a local conflict zone. It is a pressure point, and pressure points define the future of geopolitics. For deeper geopolitical analysis, regional security insights, and expert commentary, visit nexusinsight.org. Explore the Nexus Insight blog for expert insights, in-depth research, and contextual analysis on the forces shaping the global economy and international relations. Subscribe